Welcome to our witnesses. The majority has convened a hearing on defending America from the Chinese Communist Party's political warfare. This is paradoxical because our colleagues have spent the last 18 months spreading disinformation from Alexander Smirnov that Moscow and Beijing have clearly used as political warfare against America as part of their collapsed impeachment inquiry against President Biden. All over the world, from the autocrats in Moscow to the communist bureaucrats in mainland China to the theocrats in Saudi Arabia, the enemies of constitutional democracy and freedom seek to destabilize the American government. The tyrants of the world are targeting Joe Biden and promoting Donald Trump, who has fawningly described President Xi as a brilliant man, who has called Vladimir Putin a genius, and who has said he fell in love with Kim Jong-un. While Donald Trump has described President Xi as a very good man, China is in fact an authoritarian police state and violator of the human rights and civil liberties of hundreds of millions of people. President Xi has persecuted, incarcerated, and oppressed the Tibetans, the Uyghurs, and the people of Hong Kong and Taiwan. Xi has made common cause with his fellow tyrants, forming a no-limits alliance with Putin's Russia just a few weeks before Putin's illegal invasion of Ukraine in 2022. Beijing maintains a defense treaty with Pyongyang and is a key ally to Kim Jong-un, a third-generation dictator and communist monarch who presides over a totalitarian dungeon for his people. At our last hearing on the CCP's political warfare, Professor Tim Snyder explained how Chinese propaganda ploys have succeeded because certain American officials, including, sadly, some members of this committee, have parroted Russian and Chinese state disinformation. In The Atlantic, Ann Applebaum describes how the CCP's political propaganda against the U.S. both undermines American faith in our own political institutions and helps to consolidate domestic repression in China. As she puts it, quote, "If people are naturally drawn to the image of human rights, to the language of democracy, to the dream of freedom, then those concepts have to be poisoned. That requires more than surveillance, more than close observation of the population, more than a political system that defends against liberal ideas. It also requires an offensive plan, a narrative that damages both the idea of democracy everywhere in the world and the tools to deliver it." Far from opposing these autocrats, Donald Trump has joined them in attacking our democracy by promoting utterly debunked claims of election fraud and orchestrating a lawless and violent campaign to overturn the legitimate results of the 2020 presidential election. He has openly stated his desire to pardon criminal insurrectionists and to rule as a dictator, using government not for the common good, but to pursue his political enemies and to enrich himself and his family. As president, Donald Trump received millions of dollars from the Chinese government and state-owned companies, to say nothing of the valuable trademarks Chinese authorities rushed to grant him and his family. In exchange, he opposed sanctions against Chinese telecom companies and banks, even when they threatened our national security. He assured President Xi that sending Uyghurs to forced labor camps was, quote, exactly the right thing to do, and that violently cracking down on pro-democracy protests in Hong Kong was acting very responsibly. He even tried to cancel military exercises with Japan and South Korea because China complained about it. While Donald Trump has proclaimed that he and Xi love each other, the Biden-Harris administration has responded forcefully to the political, security, and economic challenges posed by the CCP. As Secretary Blinken put it, the U.S. relationship with China is the biggest geopolitical test of this century. The Biden administration has shored up our democratic institutions to withstand attacks from autocrats and strengthen our alliances with democracies both in Europe and the Indo-Pacific. While Trump has said he would encourage Russia to, quote, do whatever the hell they want to any NATO member country that doesn't meet spending guidelines on defense, President Biden has established AUKUS, a security pact with Australia, the UK, and the US to help sustain peace in the Indo-Pacific. Domestically, bills championed by congressional Democrats and signed into law by President Biden, including the Inflation Reduction Act, the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law, and the CHIPS and Science Act, are investing in American workers and innovation, creating hundreds of thousands of manufacturing jobs here and establishing domestic supply chains in strategic industries. These are big wins, not just for our economy, but for our national security. President Trump has idolized and emulated dictators like Xi and Putin and worked to move our country towards authoritarianism and away from democracy and the rule of law. In stark contrast, the Biden-Harris administration recognizes that the key to outcompeting the People's Republic of China lies in defending the extraordinary journey of American democracy, the enduring strength of our international relationships, and the revitalization of our economic competitiveness. I look forward to exploring these themes with our expert witnesses, including our distinguished former colleague, Tom Malinowski. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield back.
I'm pleased to introduce our witnesses today.